Wednesdays at 7, sharp as can be. Blue gals calling, come knit with me.
Hey guys, it's Blue Gal. How are you? I was just getting ready to podcast here and said, I really should be wearing something. I said to my husband, I really should be wearing something I knit on the podcast. And he said, if only there was something lying around the house that you could throw on. So here's the nightshade shawl. I think that's what it's called. I'll look it up and link it. There's a project page at my Ravelry. So here we go. Let's wear this. All right. I want to share. I haven't been doing much knitting this week. I've worked a little bit on my husband's sock. And what I have been knitting is dishcloths for a relative whose birthday is next week. And they are a non-clutter minimalist person who does not want anything that's going to clutter up her house in terms of gifts. Even books is not something they want. They use the library a lot and just don't want gifts that are going to clutter up their house. And so I did say, I'm going to knit you a couple dishcloths. Oh, yeah, no, I'd like those. I scrub out my pots with those. Those are very useful. So that was good news that I could do that for them. And their dishcloths are in the mail, but here's one. Here's a pink one that I worked on. And what I'm doing in terms of giving away dishcloths to people who need an impersonal, now this is a personal gift for a relative. So, hand knit dishcloths is something that they want. But there are people, I think this is a gift for anybody who, a teacher or a mailman or whatever, whoever you're going to give a gift to. I like to include a bar of soap and a couple dishcloths and tie them up in a ribbon or whatever. And last year, I gave away rather expensive bars of soap and discovered that the relative that I sent these dishcloths to really loves lavender, and actually Yardley is a better smelling, more lavender flavored, scented, don't eat your soap, more better scented soap in terms of actual lavender scent than I found with the more expensive bars. And of course, if you can find handmade soap at the farmer's market with real lavender in it, that's fantastic too. But what I'm doing for some people where it's more of an impersonal gift is a dishcloth, a bar of soap, and I haven't gotten the tea candles yet, but I washed out old candle glassware, and I'm going to run these through the dishwasher and just put a little tea candle in there, a bar of soap, and a dishcloth, and that's a Christmas ribbon around it, and that's a gift. And of course, the glass is candle safe because it was a candle. So that's going to be Christmas for people in general, for people that need a handmade gift. And the pattern that I've been using is this 3 dishcloths pattern that I'll also link below. This is by Joan English James, and she makes these pretty small. They're cast on 30 or 31 stitches. I cast on 42 and 43 stitches. They're multiples. One of them, the Waffle Pattern, is multiple of 4 plus 2, and the Ridge and Rib and the Garter Basketweave are multiple of 4 plus 3. So I did 43 for those and 42 for the Waffle Pattern, and I'll link this below. But I just found, and for the kids, I found they love my dishcloths, and I found not only a hat pattern, but also a dishcloth pattern that says abolish ice. This is the hat pattern. I'll link both of these below. This is for the chart for the hat, but there's a similar chart for a dishcloth also. And I know the kids would love an abolish ice dishcloth as well as a hat, and the hats might not get done in time for Christmas. So this is my plan for December, though, is to start knitting hats in fingering weight. I'm going to use up some of that palette yarn that I have to make some abolish ice hats. So that's current knitting. And what I really want to talk to you guys about today is a couple of Instagram channels that I found that I've found really helpful in terms of motivating, in terms of enjoying and learning something about knitting and production and finishing and feeling good about getting things done. These two channels, I've signed on for both of them, and I'm not a big Instagram person, but these two channels have really inspired me. The first one is, she's such a natural comedian. Her name is Christy Nerutsen. Oh, we're having cat fights. Uh-oh. Christy Nerutsen, and I'm not good at like inserting video into my videos and so forth, but this is her picture. She wears Scooby-Doo t-shirts and rubber ducky flannel pajama pants while she's making her videos. She's hysterical. And she does a ADHD channel where she talks about a project in her home and how long she has been procrastinating about doing this organizing project or cleaning project, and then how long it actually took. And her channel is How Long Does It Actually Take? And so she'll do, okay, I've been procrastinating about cleaning out my garage shelves for 2.5 years. And then she does this montage of her quickly, not high speed, but just sort of cut up, of her organizing her shelves in her garage and saying, okay, this took 1.5 hours, or this took 45 minutes, or folding my laundry takes, as she said, 5 to 7 working days. She's very funny. She's very funny. But the time blindness that we with neurodiversity go through, of we can't start finishing a project because we really have no idea how long it's going to take. And I know at least twice on this podcast, I've told the story of the blue scarf that was in my pile of UFOs for years, and I pulled it out and measured it, and I needed to put the garter border on the bottom of the scarf, 5 ridges of garter stitch, which is 10 rows of knitting, just plain knitting, and it was done. And I would have had a scarf for 2 years if I'd just taken the time to measure what I had done. And so taking that lesson from Christy about how long does it actually take? I know, and I've been working on this year, I can knit 5 of these comfortably in a week. 5 dishcloths, 42, 43 stitches wide in a square. I can knit 5 of these going from Saturday to Saturday, Saturday morning to Saturday morning. I can go and knit 5 of them without rushing, without taking time out of the rest of my life, without quitting my job, still doing 2 to 3 podcasts a week, still going to the doctor's office for appointments, still doing whatever, and still sitting down to knit. I can knit 5. Earlier this year, I knit a very plain stockinette cardigan, top down, for one of my children. It had a sporty stripe in it, but no other embellishments. And I was able to finish that entire sweater. It worsted weight yarn. size 8 needles, not, I think size 7 needles, but not a challenging pattern, but a basic sweater, and I was able to do it in a month, beginning to end. Getting the buttons on, getting the ends worked in, all of that. Learning that is really important to productivity. Knowing how long dishcloths take, knowing how long a pair of socks takes. I am very confident that I can knit a pair of socks on size 1 needles, fingering weight yarn in 12 days or less. So knitting a pair of socks every month, and I took 2 months off. I took September and October off of knitting socks because I knit 3 pairs of socks in July, and so I mean, I will have knit 12 pairs of socks this year, like I did last year. But knowing that, trying it and learning that you can knit a pair of socks in a month on tiny needles, you learn so much. You learn so much about yourself. You learn so much about knitting. You learn not so much shortcuts, but just concentration. You learn a little bit about discipline and a lot about how the yarn works, and it's freeing to do it. So Christy's got the right idea. How long does it actually take? And we've learned from, I mentioned this last week, from that wool show where people try to make it into a race, and you need huge needles and huge yarn and making things that may be wearable, maybe not, but that is an artificial deadline and an artificial environment in which to knit. And the better way, from the standpoint of a real knitter knitting real clothes for themselves or someone else, those items, it's slow. It's much slower than is on these reality shows. So I'm not talking about speeding up, but I'm talking about awareness and concentration and knowing how long it takes. Consciously knowing, okay, I'm casting on socks. The next 2 weeks of my life are going to be socks, and then I'll be free to do something else, is really freeing. Especially frees you from beating yourself up because you haven't gotten enough done. Okay. The other person I want to shout out to is a woman from Denmark. She has 24.2 thousand followers on Instagram. By the way, Christy has some videos that have 1 million views on Instagram. So she's just started recently. So she's really caught on because ADHD is a big, huge thing on Instagram. So this is not a great picture of her because I just screenshotted it from her Instagram channel, and I'm not ever going to learn how to embed little videos in my YouTubes. I'm just not going to learn that because it's not knitting. But this lovely person is, I want to pronounce her name right, it's Kreida, Kreida from Denmark. She does some amazing stuff with time management and finishing projects. And what she's done, this is her 3rd year of doing this, is she takes all of her works in progress and puts them on a table. Her works in progress for the year. And this includes everything she started this year, failed projects that she's going to unravel, and mending projects. And she's quite the clothing mender in terms of that being a essential part of her creativity, is the sort of slow sewing and mending and maintaining old clothes and keeping them in shape. And so she's a sewer, and she's a knitter and a crocheter. And so she tells the story in one video of, in 2023, she put up on that table 46 projects. And that included projects, like I said, that just needed a little bit of mending to them, all the way up to an entire sweater that she'd finished and didn't like and unraveled it to use the yarn for something else. To finishing a couple of sweaters that needed sleeves or needed to have the ends worked in. She had one thing recently where she crocheted a lovely little collar with bead work on it, and it was a little lace collar. I think it was knit. It might have been crocheted, but it was beadwork, and it was done on, crochet cotton, very thin cotton. And it needed to have a ribbon woven into it so she could tie it around her neck. And, how long does waving a ribbon in what is a finished piece of lace? No time at all. Half an hour she had an entirely finished wearable collar, but it had been sitting in a pile. Totally can identify with that. So 2023, she had 46 projects, and she finished them, 46 projects, in 2 months. In 2024, she went down to 40 projects, and she finished those in 1 month. And again, that can be everything from something that took half an hour to something that took a week or took longer. But the idea is she's cleaning up for the year. This year, she's down from, she went 46, 40, now it's 31 projects, many of which she started in 2025 and wants to finish. She had 13 mending jobs to do in that 31, and 4 projects that she had decided to unravel, which seems to me a lot. But I think if you're playing with stuff, or if you're using a sweater as a swatch situation, and you start a sweater and you say, okay, this isn't the right yarn, I'm going to toss it over here for a while and let it rest, and then you realize, no, really, this is the wrong yarn for this sweater. Unraveling it is the next step. And the other thing that she does that I just love is she gamifies all of it, putting everything on one table, and it's about finishing it before the end of the year. Then she has a bingo card where she has other goals about publishing her patterns and putting things up on certain platforms and doing other things. And she's from Denmark, so not everything matches to what we do in the United States, but she's got a bingo card. She also is using a thing that I just went to find today, and I don't know whether she's using the same one I did, but there is an free online website where you can do a spinning wheel, and then you type in, there's a little box over here on the computer, and you type in the things that you want to get done. And she has all 31 of her projects on her wheel. And you click the wheel and it spins, and it'll go to correspondence. I have correspondence, embroidery, vacuum. I'm going to get to vacuum someday. Knit, read, write, and knitting podcast. And that was my notes for this show. So not do the podcast, because I knew I was going to do the podcast this afternoon. That had a set time. So, but I just did this to show you guys that I put 7 things on there, but she had 31 in her list of things. And then she would spin it on Instagram and say, okay, I came up with this scarf. Here's the scarf I'm going to work on. And that takes away the guilt over, oh God, I don't want to work on that scarf. I haven't worked on that in 3 years. And also the decision tree, the decision panic and the decision delay is over with, because you spun the wheel and you're just going to work on whatever it is. Now, see, you can see I did, these are my daily habits mostly. I write 750 words a day. I knit every day. I have some embroidery project I'm working on for Christmas. I try to read every day, and so and vacuum is on there. Yeah, it is. Vacuum. All right. But yeah, bingo and spinning the wheel, gamifying it, takes a lot of the anxiety out of, oh gosh, I can't work on that because I feel too guilty about it, or I hate it. And if you hate it, rip it out. Use the yarn for something else. That's all right. So I've linked below to that. That is a free website called spinthewheel.io. And you just go on and type in the box what you want to be on your wheel, and it adds it. Then when you click on the wheel and it spins it in a randomizer, it pops up. Another box pops up that says, "Oh, correspondence. You're going to write correspondence." And then it has an option where you can remove that from the wheel and spin again. And the next time when you finish that, you don't have it on your wheel anymore. Whereas on some of these, I would just leave knit on there all the time. And if it came up again, oh no, I have to knit. I get to knit for another 25 minutes or whatever it is. And that's the other thing, is this works really well with the Pomodoro system, where if you've got a list of chores or a list of habits that you want to do every day, and you're setting a timer for 25 minutes for each of them, then you can leave those on to spin again, and maybe you'll read another 25 minutes, or maybe you'll vacuum. Yeah, I'm not going to vacuum twice in one day. That's not going to happen. All right, so I have linked below to both the Christy Newritson and the Creada, Kreaida, on Instagram. And I've also linked to the Abolish Ice dishcloth and beanie and the Spin the Wheel. And so I hope you'll go and check those out if you haven't seen them already. Very inspiring to me. I really enjoyed and am grateful for those women doing that work on Instagram. It's a lot of fun. Oh, and I'll link to the dishcloths too, the dishcloth pattern. All right. I like to end with reading, and I'm going to read some more from the Yarn Harlot, All Wound Up. And she's writing about knitting during tough times. And those of you that know Yarn Harlot know she's had quite a tragedy hit her life several years ago. And she's writing about knitting through tragedy and so forth. When I did try to knit, it felt stupid. There was no way that you could take a situation in which everything was absolutely crazy and then sit there knitting. While usually knitting helped me feel better, this time it felt like fiddling while Rome burned. For the first time, I looked at knitting and felt like there was no real way that it could help. How really could I look at a problem as big as my problems were then and think that yarn would solve it? Was I out of my mind? Did I think that heartbreak could really be solved by merino? How would a simple skein of yarn solve it all? Would it help if I knit anyway? The answer, of course, was no. In the face of a certain sort of tragedy, the lady sitting in the corner churning out a pair of socks looks crazy. And I could feel that it was crazy. Besides being solitary and meditative, when what the time demanded was team effort and focus, it was also that knitting was, even when things are terrible, a comfort. It's a distraction, a way of not dwelling in the moment, or a way of stepping back a little so you can think. For me, knitting is a huge coping mechanism. And it turns out there are times in our lives when it isn't right to be comforted or distracted. I'm not saying pain is good. I'm saying that I found that right then, when so many people were hurt, the best thing I could do was feel all the hurt and recognize that this was where I was and that we would all live through it. I've had people ask me in my life how I can listen and talk and knit. And I've always said that it is easy. Knitting doesn't take much of my attention at all. Despite the fact that it looks like a lot of my energy is somewhere else, that's not true. It's only the tiniest little bit of myself that's knitting. And besides, I've always told them, knitting has an effect on me. During this time, I realized that is very true. Knitting does have an effect on me, does help me disengage enough to cope, and does take up only a little tiny bit of my energy. Most of the time, I think that knitting helps me to pay attention. It reduces my urge to get up and wander. It gives me something to do with my hands. And far from being an indicator that I'm bored, knitting is often the way I'm keeping from being bored. Knitting takes the edge off of what is difficult, challenging, or hurtful. Knitting forms that bubble around me, and in the circumstances that I suddenly found myself in, circumstances so awful, I realized that for me, that bubble, that tiny bit of me that was given to knitting while I coped, wasn't working. It was almost disrespectful to knit. To pull myself out of that pain, to cushion it in any way with yarn and distraction was a disservice to the very real hurt feelings of those around me. They deserved and I deserved to have me listening and talking with all the energy I could muster and to be engaged as I possibly could be. The significance of what was happening to us deserved exactly that amount of hurt. And to try and avoid any of it felt dishonorable, as though I were seeking to diminish it. Gradually, a whole lot of the maxims that people said to us during the Troubles, maxims that were infuriating when we heard them, turned out to be true. Time did heal a lot of wounds. We were strengthened by the difficulties, and we weren't given more than we could bear. Gradually, I came back to myself, back to a place where a little soothing was a good thing. And slowly then I knit. I admit that at first I mostly just held my knitting, but as the burdens eased, my hands started to move, I started to knit, I stopped crying. And it was actually an inverse relationship. Knitting didn't seem to stop my tears, but the less I cried, the more I was able to knit. Washington Irving said, "There is a sacredness in tears. They are not the mark of weakness, but of power. They are the messengers of overwhelming grief and of unspeakable love." I will never know for sure what caused the time of the big not knitting. I won't know if it was the broken heart, mine or someone else's, or if it was needing to do the work of grief without distraction, or even if I was just unwilling to leave that place and move on until it was finished somehow. I do not know that there was a sacredness in my tears. They were necessary and unavoidable, and until I had cried the magic number of them, knitting was only going to get in the way. Once I had that sad work done, one by one, my tears dried up, and one by one, they were replaced by stitches on my needle, and I knit. All wound up. A lot of us are using knitting right now to get through, and sometimes we can't, and that's okay. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
On Wednesdays at 7, sharp as can be, blue gals calling, come knit with me.